Yes. All good, Chris. Yeah.
Fantastic, terrific. So yeah, just at a very top level, this is having a look at some of the figures. Now, obviously, the report that was released this morning has updated those figures, and what's concerning is that it's not a trend going down; it's a trend going up. So you can see here that cybersecurity really represents a cost to Australian businesses of 29 billion, which has now gone over the $30 billion mark per year. So when you factor that in as an average across businesses, we're talking about more than $276,000 per business. Now, obviously, that's not every business. In fact, the larger ones are the ones that really take the brunt of a lot of the cost here. But small businesses, any amount is really a big impact to your business if you're not taking the right precautions. You can see there that when they do that cost estimate, it's sort of the billions rolls off the tongue very easily. But when you try and work out, well, where is that money sort of being spent and how is that costing businesses, you'll see that 53% of that cost is actually in detection and recovery. So you can see that there's a big concerted effort now to actually look at awareness and prevention as opposed to detection and recovery, because it's in that prevention piece that we can actually start to look at reducing the exposure down for the impact for Australian businesses. The other thing worth considering there too is that number of 23 to 51, and that shows the number of days on average that it takes to resolve an attack. So not only is it a significant cost to the business if you do happen to be targeted by a cybercrime, it also has a significant impact on the potential downtime of your business while you start to activate locking down information and getting back to business as usual. So there really is I guess a key driving factor here as to look at some of the simple things to protect that piece of your business. The East Coast is where predominantly the targets are being met. So they're in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. That's where most of the attacks are occurring. The best way to look at this, if you see here, again, these are very big numbers and quite hard to get our head around sometimes, but $15 million in losses due to cyber threats in gaining personal information. And if you just stop for a moment and actually think about, just on a personal side, if somebody was to gain access to any one of your accounts, let's just say they gained access to your phone or your laptop, and from a personal point of view, just how valuable that information is to a scammer or to an attacker, to be able to access your own personal information. And now you might be holding for your customers, you can see just how much that starts to really have an impact. So if you're in a position where you're running any sort of CRM, so you might be storing customer details that might include data of addresses and maybe even birth dates and email addresses and phone numbers, all it takes is for 1 weak vulnerable point on your system and an attacker has got access to all of your customers, which is why there's been a big review and changes in regards to the onerous responsibility of directors and company owners in regards to taking some of these preventative measures. And 9.2 million malware detections recorded by Australian businesses. So that, when we talk about malware, and we're going to address some of these terms as we go through this evening, but the top 5 malware, and these are terms that you may have heard, either read in the press or kind of read in passing, but the top 5 malware, adware, phishing emails and spyware. And you can see the percentage split there on the side, heavily weighted towards the ransomware. But I know personally, even from my side, and I know a lot of you have noticed the same thing, you may be getting these random SMSs from people kind of saying, just confirming your delivery. These attackers are acutely aware of the fact that there's more of us now online. And as a result of that, there's also a lot more of us getting home deliveries. So they're really trying to find the vulnerable points and doing phishing emails and SMSs just to try and get us to click on these links and inadvertently share information that will then potentially give them access to what they want to see. So we're going to really unpack these terms in a little bit more detail. And as I said, This is not my area of expertise at all, which is why I'm so glad that we're joined tonight by two gentlemen a lot smarter than me on this side. So we are very fortunate here in the city of Casey that we do have a fantastic group of thought leaders and industry specialists that are there willing to help with other local businesses and share that knowledge and hopefully sort of contribute back to decreasing some of those numbers. And we're joined this evening by the two of the key partners from KeyLogix. A very brief intro here, but KeyLogix is a technical company started by entrepreneurs with diverse experience in technology, sales, marketing, and product delivery across a number of different countries. Their passion is to innovate within the emerging solutions to solve real-world challenges that all of us entrepreneurs face across the entire. Their goal is to deliver value to industry partners, products and services through AR, XR, MR, and for those of you not familiar, AR, augmented reality, XR, extended reality, MR, mixed reality, and we're touching on more detail on that in the next seminar, and 3D holographic solutions as well. We're joined tonight by Niaz Noor, who is the CEO and Head of Business Development, who has more than 30 years experience across the tourism industry. Fantastic story if you ever get a chance to meet with Niaz on how he's pivoted during this stage of COVID from tourism industry into cybersecurity. But he's also recently completed a graduate certificate in cybersecurity with Deakin University. He's worked with a number of businesses across US, India, Australia, and he's also on the board for the Victorian travel industry. We're also joined tonight by Jay, and Jay is an IT consultant with 30 years experience in the industry and has also worked across a number of companies both here and overseas in really managing programs, IT infrastructure, information services space. He's involved in mentoring startups in all areas of AI, IoT, AR and MR. So I think we've captured every acronym there in the description, and connecting them back to technology companies and the overall startup ecosystem. So certainly Jay is a man after our own heart in the startup space. So Niaz, Jay, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate you taking time out of your Wednesday evening to cover this important topic with us. And Niaz, I believe you've prepared a sort of a presentation that we can maybe go through and get a better understanding on all of this, because I must admit, I still get a little bit confused when I read the terms, so I'm hoping that you might be able to help us along.
Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everybody. Let me just share my screen here. Are you able to see it, Chris?
Yep, got that.
Great. So good evening and welcome to the City of Casey Innovation Crowd. This is a very basic introduction on cybersecurity. We don't want to go too deep into it. That might be difficult for everybody to understand. You know, the tourism industry was a roller coaster industry for us, and it still is. And that's why I moved to cybersecurity. I wanted to learn something new, something difficult. And I really started loving this. And Jay and I partnered and opened up KeyLogix. So I'm in business development for KeyLogix, and Jay is our strategic partnership. And what KeyLogix is all about, Jay will talk to you later. I would like to go right down into what the presentation is all about. Now, just to give you a brief idea on what I'm going to cover in this short while that we have together this evening. What is cybersecurity? And I'll explain it to you in very simple terms. Why we need to be aware of cybersecurity? Why is it important for us? What kind of information we store in our systems? A little more statistics I will show you. Chris has also shown you some statistics. Pretty much everything is increasing in terms of numbers. What are the threats that we face? Social engineering is one of the threats that we face, besides your malware, ransomware, etc. We'll talk a little bit about what is happening currently in Australia, phishing, SMS phishing, which is SMiShing, and voicemail phishing as well. You get voicemails and they ask you to click on it. And business email compromise as well, which is very important and one of the most prominent ways that phishing takes place today. We have a couple of short videos we will show you as well. And these videos have been chosen more for their content rather than the company that actually produced it. So we are not explicitly or implicitly endorsing any of those companies, but chosen them briefly for the content. We will talk a little bit about what to look out for when being scammed, what kind of things to look out for when you get emails or SMSs. We will talk about passwords. I saw the list of password numbers. There was one person who had actually 35, and that is very impressive. We'll talk a little bit about internet safety, what we should be looking out for in the browsers, the URLs, the web links. And I will also share some useful cybersecurity websites. And there are some useful links that will allow you to actually go in and test yourself whether you can very easily get phished or you are actually alert and you know what is a phishing email or an SMS. And then Jay will end the presentation by talking more about the Australian Essential 8, which is actually the defense against cyber threats. That slide can be a little deep, but he will make it very simple and explain it to you in a manner that we as SMEs can understand. And there's an infographic that I will share, which has a URL where you can actually download it, distribute it in your office. So without much ado, let's move further. So what is cybersecurity? Very simply, it's just the practice of defending all our assets and reducing the risks of cyber attacks from malicious actors or hackers. And hackers are of very different kinds. You have state actors, you have hacktivists, you have script kiddies, which are people learning how to hack, different kinds of hackers. And what are those assets that we are talking about? It's everything that we work today on: mobile phones, your computers, your laptops, your data storage place, your servers, your networks, your programs, the databases where you keep all your information. And this is exactly what the hackers are looking for. And what are the core principles of cybersecurity? It's very simple. Everything that revolves around cybersecurity is what we call the CIA triad. There's a CIA and there's another A as well. So confidentiality is the most important, one of the most important, and it's basically protecting private and sensitive information. I think in the past we've had paper documents, we kept them in files, we locked them up in cabinets, and that remained confidential. But now we just put them away in a folder somewhere in our email, in our box somewhere. So that needs to be only accessed by authorized users. And that's what confidentiality is all about. Integrity of the information, that is protecting the data from being deleted or modified, whether it is through outside sources or inside sources, inadvertently or deliberately. It should not be deleted, modified, or whether it is transported or stored. That's what integrity of the information is all about. And availability is very simply what it is: actual availability of the data when you want it. For example, if the surgeon in a hospital needs to access vital information of a patient, he or she should be able to access it at that moment in time. If he's not or she's not able to access the data, there's something wrong in the whole system. And that's what cybersecurity is all about. And accountability is the other factor, that the person who is looking after all these things needs to be held accountable. No entity should be able to deny whatever changes that have been made. Now, the technology, the software, the processes, the procedures, the nuts and bolts of cybersecurity is all behind the scenes. And that's something that we're not going to go into in this presentation. So why is it important for us? It's important for us in every industry, whether you're in real estate, banking, law, tourism, hospitality, manufacturing, construction, health. It is important because everybody is going digital. Everybody wants to transform their business into digital. They're going online. They want to have a web presence. They want to sell things online, whether it's retail or wholesale. And look at the number of connected devices in the world. They're just increasing every day, from your Apple watches or your Samsung watches to your home security devices, your doorbells with videos, your refrigerators, your television sets, your Siri, everything is connected to the internet. So there's an explosion of the IoT, as we call it, the Internet of Things. And that's where the hackers are looking for vulnerabilities. They're looking for ways to get in. Digital payment technology is increasing. Today we just swipe our cards or we use our phones. We pay, Alipay, Afterpay, Before Pay. There's so many things that's going on in this digital payment technology world. And then the data is being stored on the clouds. There was a research that was done recently, and they found out that about 60% of the Australian companies in New Zealand did not know where their data was being stored. All they know is it's in the cloud. They have no idea where that cloud is. Customer data analytics. You are collecting information about your clients, you're trying to analyze it, and you're using it to target your customers in segments. So market segmentation, you use that for data analytics. And then there is regulatory compliance as well. You need to comply with the law. The Office of the Australian Information Commission, if there is a breach, there are rules and regulations when they need to be informed. Europe has the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, and there is a separate protocol for the payment card industry, the Payment Service Directive 2. So there are so many things that are involved here, and that's why cybersecurity is important for any industry. And we, as the employees of the organization, could be the strongest or the weakest links to keep organizations secure. So we are the most important people in trying to secure our information and data. Chris, I'd request you to play this video on cybersecurity.
I apologize if you get an ad because I don't have paid YouTube. Let me see if I can just open this up.
Should I stop sharing for the moment?
Yes, you should be able to see my screen now, I think. You are going to get an ad.
The first consultation is completely free.
Tonight, I want to talk about networks.
And there we go.
Sorry, guys.
Would you be comfortable living in a house that someone else had the key to? What if an underground tunnel led into it from a public park, where its windows could never quite close all the way? Would you trust it with your safety and your privacy? The internet is that house. This is not to say never go into the house, but rather you should know the hazards before you store all of your valuables there, and do what you can to protect them. So why is it insecure, and why can't we just fortify it until it's safe? Well, first of all, the internet was not originally built to be what it is today. It's like someone decided to expand a shoebox into a skyscraper. The internet originally developed when computers were huge and so expensive to own that only universities, big businesses, and a few governments had them. The point, originally, was to let these massive supercomputers talk to each other. And as soon as two computers could send information back and forth, we had a network. The network gradually grew until personal computers emerged in the 1980s, and then it exploded. Soon, people were not just talking to each other, but also exchanging money, playing games, reading news, shopping, and doing everything we associate with the internet today. Other devices started talking to the network too. Phones and cars and refrigerators and elevators and power plants and much, much more. But the ease of all those devices talking to each other came at a price: security. One computer could send another instructions to delete everything on it or take it over. We call these viruses and malware. Or one person could steal another's identity by guessing, cracking, or extracting a password. Vulnerabilities such as these will never completely go away because they're built into the internet's very architecture. Criminals use them to steal billions of dollars, governments use them for surveillance, and hacktivists use them to further their political goals. Between 2004 and 2013, over 1 billion records of personal information were stolen or leaked through data breaches of major organizations. As a thought experiment, let's imagine what a perfectly secure internet might look like. Users would not be allowed to download or install anything onto their computers. All internet traffic would be monitored and regulated by bots and humans, massively limiting the number of websites you could visit. In order to log on to a website, you'd have to type in a 100-character password, submit a genetic sample, and whistle a tune. The servers that hold data would be kept in heavily armed fortresses on the moon. And even with all these safeguards in place, some clever hacker would almost certainly still find a way in. The good news is, even with our flawed internet, there are simple things you can do to protect yourself. And there are a lot of people committed to making the internet more secure. In Nova's cybersecurity lab, you'll play as one of these people, protecting a company that's the target of increasingly sophisticated cyber attacks. You must continuously strengthen your defenses to thwart these attackers. You'll do this by completing challenges that will give you basic coding abilities, help you spot scams designed to trick you into giving up your secrets, and teach you how passwords are cracked and strengthened. The house that is the internet may be built on a shaky foundation, but it's been a home to innovation and an unprecedented free exchange of ideas. It's up to us to make it livable in spite of its flaws.
Thank you, Chris. Are we back online here?
Yep, we got you.
Right. So here is an infographic that I wanted to share, pretty much along the lines that Chris shared earlier. There's a lot of information on this, and what I just wanted to mention here is that 95% of cybersecurity breaches are usually caused by human error. And that's why I said employees can be the weakest link as well. And look at the number of days that it takes. 51 days is the average time to resolve a cybersecurity attack. And the top 3 common types of cyber attacks are phishing, ransomware, and process weaknesses. So what do we actually store in our systems, whether it's our laptops, phones, or servers, or desktops? We store a lot of personal information, legal names and dates of birth, personal identifiable information, whether it's the lawyers or the health professionals. Bank details are held by real estate companies, conveyancers. In the tourism and hospitality and retail, we keep credit card details of our clients for long periods of time. When you book a cruise, for example, you're giving them your credit card and it remains with them for almost a year or 2 even. And we use online services to pay for our purchases all the time. And sometimes deliveries can take a few months. We correspond with our customers by email, exchanging personal information. So all this information is data, and this information is actually an indispensable component of conducting business today. And actually, in a growing number of businesses, it is their business. Information is their business. And that's the reason why we need to protect it. So you might think, is the attacker interested in me? Well, he actually is. Don't get me wrong. He is interested in anybody and everybody out here today. He wants your credit card information. He wants your medical information. Pretty much anything that personally identifies you. And with that data, he can sell it to anybody for money. So let's take a look at what some of the threats are. Social engineering. I want to just highlight one of them because that's the most important one today. There are many threats besides malware, ransomware, spyware, adware, etc. All these things are there around that we see every day. But social engineering is, it plays on the human psychology. And that's why we as employees, or we as people interacting on the internet are not only the victims, but we are also the initiators of the attack. And I'll tell you how. So phishing, it tops everything. SMiShing, we all get SMSs every day, which with links that tell you to click on it. Voicemails, you get messages saying you missed a voicemail, click on it. All these things are social engineering methods by the hackers. Shoulder surfing, somebody is looking over your shoulder while you type your password or entering some confidential information. Tailgating is somebody following you behind in an area where they don't have access. And then you have business email compromise, which is the most common way of phishing. And talking of emails, let's take a look at August 2021. The average global emails and spam. Legitimate email is only 15.74% of the emails sent worldwide. And look at it compared to last month, it's actually minus 334% over July 2021. Now, my belief is that most of the hackers, perhaps Europeans, are holidaying in the southern France or southern Spain, because July, August is when they go on holidays to spend their money that they've gained from hacking people. But 85% of all emails on an average is spam. So how do we spot these emails, these scams, these SMSs? Well, they could have spoofed names. You can get an email with a name that's totally spoofed. It could be a legitimate name, but the reply to spoof, it's different. So you have to look at the email itself and understand where it's coming from, what the reply address is. The domain names can be similar. There might be a slight twist in the spelling of the domain name. The email sender could be genuine, but when you reply, there is no address. It's going to an attacker. So these are some of the things that we need to look out for. And when you get an email which says, this is urgent, you need to act immediately, be very alert. These are the things that the hackers pry on. They want you to look at it because it's urgent, it's immediate, and they want you to click on it. And they want you to log into something, give them your personal information, and they provide you those links and make it easier for you. Emails are always very poorly written. There are a lot of grammatical mistakes in these because they know that the intelligent people, the well-educated people, well, even the most educated people sometimes get scammed, but there is a deliberate reason why they do that. And what are their favorite topics and times when they actually try to send out all these scam mails? Well, always the subject header is urgent or confidential. Usually when there is, the scammers use headline news in their attacks. It's COVID times, so they're sending you an email and say, click on this link to get more information on how to protect yourself from COVID-19. Or there are tax issues. At tax times, they will send you messages. And usually around the holiday season, you will get a lot of spam email, orders and deliveries, because you may have ordered gifts. You may not have ordered gifts and you're actually getting emails. So let's take a look at some of the scammers' favorite ways of doing things. These are just a couple of examples. You might just get an email saying your order has been canceled. They want you to click on something just to verify that it was you or it wasn't you. And then you're entering your credit card, and that's how they get all the information. It's an SMS message. Your account has been temporarily restricted, and this is coming from ANZ Bank. And they want you to click on that link, which is going to take you to a malicious site, and where you're going to log in with your password and your customer number, and then they have all your details. So be very wary of these. Here's another one from the Australian government. Now, no government agency in Australia is going to send you an email and ask you for your date of birth, your tax file number, or your driver's license or your Australian passport. On your Services Australia website, which is a secure site, you might be asked all this information, but not in an email. So be very wary of these things. Let's see if we can spot the difference here between a URL. GT Bank is not the same as GT Bank. The A is a Cyrillic letter. So these are some of the small things the hackers tweak, and they make it look genuine. So be very careful about the URLs that you see, the email headers that come into your inbox. Be very careful about the email attachments. Stop before you click on anything. There are about 37% of malicious emails come in documents, whether it's a Word document or whether it's a PDF or an Excel file. If you're not expecting a document or an attachment from somebody, don't open it. Does that person normally send you a document, an attachment? If you're in doubt, do not open it. And macros in Excels, if you don't know what macros are, just do not enable content on them. They can just download malicious software. So be very cautious of various things like freeware, urgent immediate requests, attachments which have strange extensions like exe, zip, jar. These are files that can be downloaded the moment you click on it, and there can be malware in it. Phone calls from unknown sources, obviously you're not going to take them or respond to them. Requests for confirming login details. Don't ever click on those links. Always go to the genuine site. Orders that you've never placed before. Pop-ups and coupons with links. These are some of the things that we need to be very careful about. And we have something called a business email compromise. Another short video, Chris.
When it comes to the emails you receive, everything isn't always as it seems. Targeting businesses of all sizes, business email compromise scams are rampant, amounting to billions of dollars of losses globally. Using emails that are made to look like they are from someone you know, like your boss, your supplier, or your customer, these scams ask for a payment to be made to a fraudulent account. A quick phone call could prevent your business from being scammed out of thousands of dollars. So here are two common examples of this scam you need to be able to spot and protect against. Supplier email scams occur when a fraudulent request for payment looks like a legitimate expected invoice, or it could be a fake email requesting you update a supplier's payment details for future payments. Scammers can also masquerade as your boss, emailing a request to make an urgent or confidential payment, often in a way that's different from your usual process. So what can you do to avoid being caught by one of these scams? You can start by deadbolting the doors to your email accounts by using strong and unique passwords for each account and enabling two-factor authentication where available. Then, establish a clear payment approval process that involves multiple approvers. Most importantly, remember to always pause before you pay, especially when making payments to new accounts, even if the request comes from your boss. Verify payment requests received by email by calling a trusted number from the supplier or customer's website, or speaking to the requester in person to confirm the details are correct before creating the payment. Questioning the legitimacy of a payment request could save your business thousands of dollars. If you think you may have been scammed, contact CommBank immediately. Then make sure you reset your passwords and enable two-factor authentication on your email accounts. Learn more at commbank.com.au/security.
So we spoke about passwords, and this is an infographic that I wanted to share. And Chris, at the beginning of the presentation, asked about passwords. What's the number of characters? I saw that the
Sorry,
average
no,
was,
you're just going to have to share your screen again.
Is it not shared yet?
Sorry, Ella, I might just ask if you can just mute your microphone as well.
No worries. Let's see here. Is that look? Yep. Is it on now, Chris?
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes, so we spoke about passwords, and as we all know that Chris asked everybody about number of characters, and I think the average was about 11. One person had 35. That was very impressive. It's not even on the chart here. So look at the average. There was 8, I think 8 and 11. It takes only 8 hours for a hacker to hack your password if you have numbers, upper and lowercase letters and symbols. The more characters you have, the longer it's going to take. So always look for something beyond 12, 14. If you look at 12 characters, it takes about 34,000 years to crack it if you have a mixture of numbers, upper and lowercase letters and symbols. Maybe in a few years' time, technology will be so far ahead that instead of 34,000 years, it might be 3,000 years, but it's still a long time. Some of the most common passwords here. If you see anything that you recognize here, you should simply change it immediately. These are passwords that can be hacked almost instantly. Now, passwords or passphrases, which is better? Passphrases are better because the longer it is, the more complex it is, the more difficult it is for hackers to get access to. At least 12 characters are a minimum, 15 and more is always better. Statistics show that there are almost about 300 billion passwords being used by humans and machines all over. Look at the number of passwords each individual has for so many different accounts. So try and use a password, passphrase, and many people now are using password managers as well, but we believe that passwordless is going to be the future. People are already talking about it. Passwordless authentication is on its way. Passwords is almost a 4-decade-old legacy, which hasn't changed. We are still using customer numbers or user IDs and passwords. This is going to change in the future. A little bit about internet safety and points of vulnerability. What do we need to be careful about? We should stop clicking on pop-ups that suddenly come onto your screen. Anything that's installed from pop-ups is going to definitely download malware or spyware or adware onto your systems, and they'll be watching exactly what you do. Browser security is important. Anything that you get to update your Chrome or Safari, do update it regularly. Antivirus protection should always be on. Never click on anything that's being offered free, especially software. There's always something behind it, so do not click it. And don't assume that a lock on the URL is a safe site. Be very careful about those things as well. We all love free Wi-Fi, don't we? When we go to the airport, the cafes, the libraries, we want to log on. This is exactly the place where hackers are waiting for devices that are not protected. Use your data, use your secure ways to connect to your office if you have to. But Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi hotspots are dangerous. And social media, I cannot emphasize more on what information is being shared on social medias like Facebook, Instagram, etc. Right from the day the child is born till he's 7 years old, every day there's information on what the boy or girl is eating, where they're going to school, which place they're going on a holiday. This is all information that's, very easy for the hacker to put together, to piece together. It's a jigsaw puzzle. And today, we all know that employers can find more information about us by just looking at our social media accounts. They don't need to ask you for your resume. They know all about you, what beliefs you have, what you like, what you don't like. So be very careful about what you post on social media. Check the privacy concerns, make sure that your information is private and not shared by everybody. Would you go around opening up your phone and sharing your child's photograph to a stranger? You wouldn't do it on the road, would you? So why do you want to do it on social media? That's my opinion. Hover before you click. Why? Because underlying that URL can be something else. For example, here we see something treetopsecurity.com, but when you hover over it, it is something else. It's evil.com. So be very careful when you hover on it. You will get to know what the real URL is, and be very careful about the foreign domains, RU, HU, CN, UK. These are foreign domains, and normally we wouldn't deal with it on a daily basis unless you have business relationships in those countries. Don't trust any URL with numbers in it. Absolutely not. And if you see such things on a mobile or a tablet, you need to long press to see what is below the URL. If you don't press it long enough, you're actually clicking it, and that can be dangerous. And if you have any doubts about it, absolutely don't click on it. Here's something else we need to be careful about. Connecting your flash drives or SD or micro SD cards from people that you don't know. We all go to these trade shows. We all get these flash cards. We all think it's reliable, but you never know. It might have malware loaded on it. Maybe even the person who's handing it over to you does not know that it has malware in it. So be very careful about it. Always do a virus check. Maybe your IT department can do that for you, or you can do it on your own systems if you know how to do it. So the CDs, DVDs, external hard drives, all these things we need to be very careful about when connecting. And even our mobile phones, we have sometimes very high risk applications that we don't use. These can be tracking what you're doing on your phone. So if you're not using an app regularly, just delete it. You don't need it if you're not looking at it every day. So these are some of the things we need to be careful about. And now I'm going to share a few very useful websites. The one I really like is Have I Been Pawned? Many of you may have come across it. And if you have not, you should just get on to haveibeenpawned.com and enter your email ID, whether it's your Gmail, your Hotmail, your official email. And the moment you enter it, you're going to get a list of websites if your email has been compromised on those websites. You might have LinkedIn, you might have Canva, you might have a CRM bank or anything, social media account. Enter your email ID and you will know exactly what websites your email has been compromised on. And if it has, please go to that website, change your password, and have a longer passphrase or something. There are also some very interesting links here. Phishing quiz with Google. You can actually go onto that site and answer some questions, and it'll let you know whether you are actually being phished. That's one way of trying to be more alert and increase your knowledge. The government of Australia, as well as the Federal Trade Commission of the United States, are also some websites which will give you some phishing quizzes just to see what a phishing email or an SMS might look like. It's very interesting. And here's an infographic that you can download from some of these websites. These infographics are very useful if you can print them, circulate them amongst your colleagues in your office, put them up on your notice board, let people be aware of what is phishing, what kind of email phishing scams are going on, social media phishing. It's a very useful infographic, and there are many such infographics all over the internet. I just picked this one up because it looked interesting. And finally, there is a cybersecurity assessment tool. This is in the business.gov.au website. It's a very interesting assessment tool. It essentially asks you about 30 to 40 questions about your cybersecurity maturity level in your organization. As you start answering all those questions, and it'll end up with a report that you can download. And that report will give you exactly what you need to do immediately and what you need to do a little later and what you should be looking out for eventually to make sure that you are cyber secure in your organization. It takes a little bit of time to answer those questions, but they are worth it. And I think every organization should get themselves assessed, download the report, talk to the CEOs or the IT department and make sure that they are secure enough. I'm now going to pass the microphone on to Jay, who will talk a little bit about the defense against cyber threats and the Australia Essential 8. He will end the presentation after the 2-3 slides and talk a little bit about key logics itself, and then we will open it up to questions and answers, if any. Jay?
Thanks, Niles, and hello to everyone. It's been a long night, and so I'll try and end this as early as possible. So taking on from what Niles said earlier, and I think that the maturity model test is very essential for all organizations. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre has, through public consultation and with reports from the cyber threats that they've been analyzing and observing, have come up with about 8 criteria, which they're using these 8 criteria. They've come up with maturity models, model 0, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3. I don't want to, this is quite a technical. This is pretty technical, and I don't want to go deeply into this. It's more for the IT department of or IT person who will understand this and try and decide where in the maturity model you are today, and based on your risk appetite, which maturity model you want to go to across these 8 criteria. So the 8 criteria that's been listed is the application control, the patch. So what does application control mean? The application control is basically about the various applications that are used in the organization, and and the way they are. Let me just start with saying that this entire maturity model, and this model is oriented mainly towards Microsoft and Microsoft servers and laptops, which are internet facing, which is what most organizations and businesses use. And so you have the patch applications here. There are a few items here which are of critical nature or what would be required. Applications, coming back to application control, it's when you go onto the internet. There are scripts from the HTML which gets downloaded onto your laptop, which automatically run even if you do not know, without any user intervention. And the application control is more focused on putting those security into your IE, Internet Explorer, into your Google Chrome, to ensure that scripts don't run automatically. Software libraries, the HTML scripts and JavaScripts do not run automatically, and you're aware when they need to be run. And to achieve this, the first step that needs to be done is when on your laptop or your desktop or your devices that you're using, you need to ensure that you have an admin ID and then a user ID. And the admin ID is with all the privileges, and the user ID has no privileges. So this protects you so that any application that gets downloaded, malicious application gets downloaded, when it needs to install, it will ask for an admin ID, and you know that you didn't download this, and therefore you can avoid a malicious attack. Patch applications. There are 2 levels of patch applications. One level of patch applications is because of the vulnerabilities that are constantly being identified. The vendors of applications like MYOB or Zero that you're using have to constantly update and then send patches and ask you to update those. So those patches have to be always once such a release comes to you and you're aware that the vendor has asked you for an update, you need to try and update it within the 48 hours so that the exploit you're prevented or protected from the exploit. Similarly, Microsoft Office. Since again I said that all these 8 essentials, all of them are oriented towards Microsoft systems and Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office macro settings, Nias did mention that earlier. You always need to ensure that the macro settings are not enabled in your Office applications like Excel or Word, and your antivirus. If you have the latest versions of antivirus, they would ensure that any files that you get from the internet are protected against macro. You'll get a straight away warning saying that file not, please do not open this file because the macros of macro do not enable please enable the macros if you want to read the file. That still should be a warning that this is not a file that is from a trusted source. User application hardening is another criteria that is used here. And this is all about, again, about the internet, about identifying the internet, going to the internet, going to the settings and making sure that your security settings are only left for the minimum that is required for you to access the internet and do your work within the internet. And all others by default are closed off. You block the PowerShells, you block the PDF softwares and other things from opening up automatically, videos from playing automatically. Then again, then you come to restricting administrative privileges. This is about all the applications that are there and files that are there in your system, within your organization, within various, and again, the IT department can come back and say that, yes, you can identify who among your team is able to access what kind of access they have on various files, various folders, monitoring systems which are set up, which will say log who has accessed the files, when there was access, and make sure that only those people who need to access information on it, but should have access to specific files or specific folders. This is again a question of going there and setting up the setting up who has access, who has what read access, who has got write access, who's got deny. And this, the IT team can help you with this kind of a restriction. And then most important is the operating system patches. You would see that if you have got an automatic update on your laptop, every now and then you will see that there are downloaded and installed, and so many patches need to be installed. And that is very essential, as Microsoft constantly keeps looking for vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities are assessed, and then they release new patches, and those patches are updates, they are mitigations for security vulnerabilities in the OS. It is very important that those patches are applied to your laptops or the desktops or the assets that you're using in the organization. If you're on a large, if you have a server, and from where the server, all the laptops are being connected, the IT department will be able to run some SCCM softwares there, which will automatically push the patches onto the assets or the laptops. Multi-factor authentication, that is today's world, that's a must. Everybody allows multi-factor authentication, since people are on social media, people are on are using various applications and various kind of social medias. Even if you go to Amazon.com, if you have a multi-factor authentication, every time you log in, it gives you an OTP or pushes an SMS onto your phone saying that, yes, please enter this number to continue on. What this does, it protects you. It protects you if you're on Facebook and you have multi-factor authentication on, and someone tries to break in, they're able to get your login, and they need to change it. You get an SMS, and they don't have your phone, and so they're not able to, actually access your profile. And only if they have your number and your phone, and they're able to divert or change your login and your login phone number into it, will they be able to access your hijack your Facebook profile. So it's very important that you do have multi-factor authentication. And lastly, it's about regular backups. There is a theory which says that backup should be 3-2-1. There's 3 copies of the backup, 2 should be on site in the premise, and 1 should be off site. You should have 2 of the backups, one on a file or tape, another one could be a hard drive or a tape storage. But again, today, all malicious actors and even ransomware is able to now affect your backup. So if you've been infected, and you've been there's a malware, your backup is also kind of compromised. So what is the best way to do this is continuing with backups is still very important, as it's an assumption that all your other steps that you've taken, your device is secure, and then you do a backup, because in case something happens to your device, you always have a backup to start off, and your data can be stored either in a safe or have a backup which is in the cloud. That's what a lot of people do today with cloud packages. Though it is not supposed to be as secure, it's still one of the best and fastest way of securing, keeping a backup, and getting online when some of your device is compromised. So So yeah, so there is a. I mean, you could go to the website, the link which is shown here, which is gives you a bit of list. I mean, a big list of about what the essential 8 is and whether you need to keep the essential 8. It is more from an information point of view, but I believe that the essential 8, even for a small and medium business, to just check the maturity level, which Naya shared in the links and the URLs earlier, would be a good way of saying where you are today and what steps you need to do. So multi-factor authentication, patch operating is 2 of the things that I would really suggest that it should be run on a regular basis. And if you don't have multi-factor authentication today, that's that's something that should be introduced. So that should be considered. Naya, your next slide, please. So in this slide, what we're showing here is that it's basically if you do get hacked or you have an incident, and if you're a victim of cybercrime, what do you have to do? There is a hotline number that you can call, and there are websites that you can go to, links that you can go to, and you can fill in a form there to say what happened, and they would definitely get in touch with you and try to, and will assist you in trying to restore your systems back to what it was before. And this is definitely something that you should actually, I believe, should print out and keep in your website. And this would be the last slide for today's show and today's show. And I think we are ultimately going to be closing this off with a little bit of talk about Keylogics. Keylogics was formed by Nayaz and me with a view to work with our interest in cybersecurity. And what we do is we represent companies which are working in specific areas of cybersecurity, more to do with large organizations, enterprises, or anybody in the payment, which is a payment processing area. And the focus is on the assumption that there's already a hacker within the network, and how do we protect your very valuable data? And that's the area. So we do application layer security, encryption and tokenization, and that's the area. That's the focus for us. We also are very looking forward to passwordless future. And Keylogics is started by one of our partners, TrustKey, works in the area of passwordless authentication, and we do. What we would say is, I mean, there is an organization called FIDO, and FIDO is Fast Identity Online, which has got a regulatory framework and has been working with various organizations globally to make the passwordless future. And TrustKey is on the board of FIDO, and we are pushing passwordless authentication and making the awareness within the Australian market. This is something that we can help you with. The passwordless authentication here is just a USB key which has all your information, which has the necessary information. You have your laptop. Most of the websites today do support passwordless authentication, and you can use this key to log into all these websites, and across several federated websites. You can log into Google and then across to Facebook and others without having to remember your passwords again or type in your passwords multiple times. So I'll leave you with this. And you can get in touch with us at info@keylogics.com.au, and I think I'll hand you back over to Chris.
Thank you. Wow, a lot of information there, and very much appreciated. I think it's interesting. We've had a couple of questions sent through just on private chat, so just make the note, if you do want to ask any questions of the guys while they're here, feel free now to type it into the chat, but I have had a couple shared across here. I also made a note, just an interesting point, Naya, as you mentioned about the public Wi-Fi and oversharing. I have that conversation with my kids all the time when we're traveling. They're constantly searching for the free Wi-Fi, and then the minute they connect on it, they're telling the world that we're not at home, we're somewhere else. And it's just amazing watching it's second nature to them, but they're kind of exposing that all out. One of the questions that we had here, and there's some really interesting ones, but there's one in regards to currently myself and my team are working from home. We're all connected up through my home network, which my kids are also connected to. Don't know what my kids are doing online. So is there a risk for us all sharing the same network, given that he might be doing something separate on his computer, putting it at risk? Is there a concern about being on the same network, or given if they've protected their individual devices, should they be concerned about that?
I think the most important thing is the gateway needs to be protected. So for example, we are working from home. We have a router that's the gateway to the internet for us, to our internet service provider. Now, what we've noticed in the past is that most people who bring in these new routers or replace their routers, they leave the default password as is, which is the biggest mistake that we can make. And usually the default password is password or admin or something similar like that. That needs to be changed immediately. And you know, there are ways to actually go into the router configuration and make it invisible so people cannot find that particular router or that network that you're connected to. Although an experienced hacker can find it, it's not very difficult for him. Now, if it's open, and if you're just passing by my house and have an open Wi-Fi, they'll be able to pick up my signal and log into it if it's not protected. So it doesn't matter if the children are on the same network. My boys are also on the same network as I am. My younger boy is 19 and he's probably you know, with his friends chatting away or classes. My older boy, he loves to play games online. He's a gamer. So it really doesn't matter. As long as the network is safe, the gateway is safe, you have all the antivirus protection. Be very careful about the phishing stuff that comes on. Even with children, when they're playing games, then there can be a lot of pop-ups that come up on screen. Those are the things that they need to be careful about. And sharing personal information is an absolute no-no for children. That's why they say create a fictitious name. Don't give out real names. Don't give out addresses, dates of birth, where we live. There are predators on the internet prying on small children, young children who are vulnerable, and they know that they're always on their iPads or iPhones or whatever. They're always looking out for information like this. So I don't think it's a problem to be on the same network at all. No.
Okay. I just noticed a question pop up in the chat. A couple here actually. So just firstly, we've got. I'm just going to go through. What's the best online payment gateway in Australia for online business? I think in respect of the conversation we're having, obviously there's many factors of what's the best online gateway, but yeah, is there an easy way to answer that?
Jay, I'm going to leave that to you.
The best online gateway, I think I'll have to come back on that. There's quite a few out there, and with the open banking having a bit taking, you know, really opening up in Australia, you're going to have a few more coming up. I'll have to come back to you on that, Chris.
It was actually one of the questions I got sent through as well. Somebody was asking, they do business overseas, and they currently run Xero as their accounting platform. Never thought to kind of ask the question that you asked at the start of where are these files actually stored? I know they're up there in the cloud, but where's Xero actually storing those? And in the context, obviously, of doing overseas business with changes in European law and where you can store files there, is this something for people to be aware of when they're trading internationally in terms of where they're storing customer information?
The GDPR laws, even here in Australia, are now for focusing with changes with the new laws that have come in, are forcing organizations to ensure that the information that of Australians that are kept within Australia. You have the Amazon and Google and Microsoft now having set up their own data centers here to keep the information. a lot of companies now are beginning to start to set up delivery centers within Australia by bringing in people. I mean, there are delivery centers which are overseas from Philippines, India, back into Australia, purely because there's a certain amount of data that they work with, which cannot, even if it's masked, it cannot be sent overseas without the consent of the people from who are. I mean, anybody has a right today to ask the bank, where is my data card? What are you holding on? What information you're holding about me? Where are you keeping this information? Who has access to information? And if they say, yeah, are you sending this information overseas? They have to say yes or no. So banks, a lot of information companies in Australia are focusing more on keeping the information here. With over the Xero, for example, with Xero having expanded from just being a New Zealand Australian company to internationally, and if they're using the cloud, they could be keeping it in whatever cloud you're using, whether they're using Amazon or they're using Google or they're using Microsoft Azure. So where are they? It's actually a question that has to be asked to Google, to Xero. With respect to European laws, the European laws are more to do with companies in Europe and companies in Europe who are doing businesses overseas. The Europeans have the right to ask. They're the ones who come under the European GDPR laws, not necessarily Australian companies who are trading with Indian with companies in Europe, because you're not covered under them unless your business is you've got a business or an office set up in Europe. Then you get covered by them.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, I have another question here from Tim. Can we rely on Windows Defender to protect us, or do you recommend a commercial antivirus software package?
I've been using Windows Defender for the longest time. I've not had any problems at all, as long as it's automatically update. I don't use a commercial virus software package. Look, there are many free software, the Kaspersky, AVS, many of them have some free software as well, even for your mobile phones. But Windows Defender is good. Make sure that it is updated and it's automatically updated. This is my personal opinion. This is what I've been doing for years and years. I've not had a problem. I did use Norton and Symantec and other things for some time, but the last 10 years, I've never used a commercial package. I don't know about Jay.
That depends on what you're using a laptop for, what information you're storing in a laptop, and Windows Defender is good. A lot of people do use the default Defender, and it's improved a lot from what it was, say, 5-6 years ago. And again, commercial software, antivirus software packages are very specifically somebody like Norton or so. That's what their bread and butter is. So you would have a level of protection from that too. But like Naya said, I'm happy with Windows Defender. But again, if you're using it for if you're not very, you want to be very confident. I mean, say that yes, I'm not very sure of Microsoft. I'm not sure of Defender. I would say that yes, there's no harm in using commercial antivirus software. Most of the commercial antivirus software are pretty good. They do. They're well on top of. Most of them are moved into automation, so they're well on top of the current antiviruses and ransomware attacks, and they protect you against all of them. Yes, they can be a pain to set it to install. Some of them definitely have issues when Microsoft releases new versions and software updates. But if you're an IT person, should be able to help you out with that.
Terrific. I have a question here from Ella. I run a business and write for 2 separate clients on one laptop. One client has gained a certain amount of control of my laptop. Another wants me to run a VPN. Plus, there's all of my own stuff. Does the VPN and my client control this listen in and control everything on their own apps I'm logged into? Can I run 2 different VPNs depending on what I'm working on?
Technically, you would not be able to run 2 different VPNs at the same time. So you can have a VPN set up, and again, it's when you say the client has a certain control, I'm assuming that you are using a VPN and you have a VDI, That is, basically you have a desktop or the client's desktop which shows up on your computer. I mean, that's my assumption, could be wrong. And if that is the case, then if it's a non-persistent, which means that once you log out, your client is out of that desktop goes out of your laptop, and they don't have any control over your laptop anymore. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Ella,
Sort of. Sorry about the background noise here. So I just log into my email and their SharePoint and everything on a web browser, but it's forced me to change my login to my actual laptop. It wasn't happy with a 4-digit code login. So it's sort of, it's taken over a few of the settings of my actual laptop, even though everything I do for them is through a browser.
Then I suggest that you have an IT person have a look at your laptop, because if you're logging in through a browser, it shouldn't change anything on your laptop. Your login should be your login into your laptop. Then you open the browser and you log into the client on the browser, and you work off that. But if the client is installing something or changing your browser setup, how do you work with when you're finished logging out of that application? And how do you use the browser? When you use the browser again, does the same thing persist, or the client is no longer there?
I just have it open in the background. It's just that when I sort of first installed it, went through all the 2-factor authentication to actually access all the files I needed to access.
Mm-hmm.
I was forced to increase security settings on my computer, and it seemed to be triggered by logging into this client, a government client's files, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So the other client, you're logging in using a VPN. Is that correct?
I don't know if I've set up the VPN properly, but I have a similar setup, and I have to use a separate browser, or else everything flips out, not knowing which client I'm logged into.
Okay. I think your client is giving you access to SharePoint, so you're using your browser to log into SharePoint, and they're forcing you to make sure that your browser settings are changed so that you cannot, do whatever is the that should be, because if you've got a default browser setting, a lot of the default browser setting opens a lot of information. I mean, it's not secure. So a lot of organizations do ensure that your internet settings are changed to make it secure for their own before you can connect to their system. But I don't think that would have changed your log into your laptop, would it?
It was very strange. I'll have to get someone to look into it, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ella, feel free to share a bit more detail afterwards, and we could have a chat to the guys and see if they can shed any more light on that.
Sure. Yeah.
Just got another quick one here from Ayush. Is the topic cybersecurity engagement activity related to SFIA skills and ACS CBOK core body of knowledge? These are all new acronyms to me. Do they make more sense to you, Nance?
You go ahead, Nance.
Yeah, no, I'm not too very familiar with the actual relationship, but I know that the skills framework for the information age focuses on digital transformation skills and information and cybersecurity skills. So I would say yes, it is related in some way. Yes, if that's.
Yeah, that's correct, Nance.
And if we need any clarification, feel free to type it into the chat. I've got a question here. What are the mandatory privacy regulations that an Australian-based company has to abide by when storing information in servers outside of Australia? Even when you're working with well-reputed companies like GoDaddy, are there any mandatory regulations in place?
Jay?
Not that I'm not at this moment. There are no mandatory, because GoDaddy is no. I don't think there is any mandatory regulations at the moment in place which prevents you from working or storing information on GoDaddy.
Okay.
I would just add here, Chris, that as I mentioned earlier, many of the Australian companies don't even know where their data is being stored. It's possible that the servers are sitting in Taiwan or Korea or Guam or some other place. What is important to realize is that if the data is breached in those countries, the laws that will apply will be of those countries for the data breach. So that's why we insist here in Australia that store the data here, let the data be stored here, and we should know where it is. We are so busy with creating data, storing data, moving data, transporting data that we really don't know where it is. I mean, you ask any of the engineers, the IT engineers, where the data is. They said they know it's on Amazon cloud, but where is that server? Can they pinpoint exactly where it is? They don't know, because there are so many changes taking place in their organizations. People leave, people come, people go. Nothing is being updated in a manner that follows policy and procedure. Imagine if the IT manager quits and he's joined another company. The new person doesn't know what's going on unless he's handed over a detailed, in plan on where the data is, what's the situation, what's the framework. It can be a mess. So there is this situation today, and that's probably why the survey was done, and they figured out that people don't know where it's stored. And that's why I'm a little wary about, I don't have that kind of information that I can store on a huge server, but enterprises do, Amazon and Google, and so they all have these huge sites everywhere.
Yeah, and also the Australian GDPR laws do state and how they are more aware of how it works with enterprises. I'll need to check on how they work with small and medium organizations, because enterprises come under a lot of compliance under GDPR, and they have to provide information not just about where they store the information of their employees and what kind of information they hold. They also have to look at who are their suppliers and where do those suppliers hold their information, and are they compliant. So I can talk about enterprises, but about small and medium businesses, and with respect to GDPR and what it covers and how does it talk about where they hold the information, that I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. As I said, some of these we may need to look at offline, and we can send through some stuff later on. Just a couple of other quick questions here. Jenny is asking, so you mentioned earlier, Nayaz, about the HTTPS. Never really even used that as a trusting of a website. But when setting up a new website as a business, say you were setting up a new website, what security should you be setting up on your site? Should you at least be getting a secure, sort of connection on your site?
Absolutely, yes. We just created our website a few months ago. The web developer will know where to get those security certificates. There is the TLS certificate and the SSL certificate with enhanced security levels. You have those locks which are actually green in color, and you can actually click on that lock on the URL to see which company it is that issued the digital certificate, whether it is valid and how long it is valid, who's issued it. There's a lot of information if you just click on that lock. The web developer who's developing your website, again, it depends on whether it's an e-commerce site or it's just a regular static website like ours. E-commerce websites may need to comply with other regulations as well. Payment protection, where are you storing that credit card, where is it being stored? All this is something that needs to be looked into, and the web developer will actually have all that information. They're used to doing it every day. They know where to get those certificates. As a matter of fact, we got our SSL certificate just about a month ago. It took some time because they need to verify your company, who you are. They actually called me from New Jersey to verify I am Keylogics, and I'm sitting here in Australia, and this is my telephone number. They wanted to verify that, and only then, and then they also wanted to see our listing on Google, on business sites, common business sites where you can list like Yellow Pages and things like that. And only then they sent us the certificate, which can be attached to the website. So yes, the developer will know about it, but there is a little bit of follow-up that you as a company need to do.
So Jenny's just added in as a follow-up to that, what if you're building your own website? So you don't have a developer, but you want to take those security precautions. Is there a quick, easy guideline for that?
Well, you will have to contact the security service, the SSL certificate provider. There are many, and even if you just Google SSL TLS certificate providers, and you need that certification because otherwise your website is not safe. And unless you have that certificate, people will not think that your website is a legitimate website. So these SSL certificates are issued by legitimate companies across the world. And choose a good one, somebody reliable. There are many companies in the United States who do it, and you'll be able to find that company and deal with them directly as well.
You may also want to start with your domain host as well. So whoever's doing hosting your domain name, I know a number of you are working through Venture IP, which is another fantastic local firm, and you can always sort of contact them and have a chat as well. I just want to make sure that we get to some of these questions, so we're going to try and go rapid fire on it, or as quickly as possible, but understanding there's a bit of detail here. But Rowan has asked, if you used Have I Been Pawned and you get spam bot, what does that mean? And can you do something about it?
Spam bot.
Yeah, that should be of concern, Rowana, because spam bot is basically a bot program, which is an automated program which does screen scraping. It scrapes information off the screen, captures information like whatever's on the screen. And it depends on what kind of information it's been able to. So if you went to Have You Been Pawned and the pawn says that your screen, this one has been scraped, I think you should look at changing your password. That's what I would.
You've just found something to do tomorrow, or even tonight. Jump on that one straight away. I've got another question here from Shilpa. Recently, there's been quite a lot of noise around major social media platforms like Facebook, Google, WhatsApp, sniping our personal info correspondence without our knowledge. How do we deal with that? Do these platforms offer explicit disclosure for us to avoid these platforms to do so? Do you have any level of control over that if they decide they want to start scraping your info?
I don't think we have.
Yeah.
Look, Google is watching us from every angle. It's impossible. And that's some of the more security conscious people do not use Google as a search engine. People use DuckDuckGo. They don't track you. So that's one of the search engines that I might use. Although Google has more information stored in it, it's easier to find information on Google because of the amount of information stored and the search engine and the algorithms that they work on. But yes, you cannot help Facebook taking your personal information because you need to check your privacy, what privacy and security conditions you laid on when you signed in. You can always change it, but they're always watching us, Facebook, Google. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody that can stop. People are using Siri, they're using Bixby to ask questions. All that is, they're looking at you, they're hearing you, they're listening to you. And the data is being sold. So, I mean, I deleted my Facebook account the moment I joined Deakin University. I said, that's it. I'm done with Facebook. No more private information.
Keep in mind too, Shilpa, you can actually go to any of these companies and ask them what information they've got on you. And in fact, I know I did that with Facebook. I got a report dating right back to when I first started with Facebook, and it was an eye-opener, to be honest. Just the amount of stuff in there, and even the Google one. There's and we'll provide the link for that, where you can actually understand what information Google's got. And I'm not sure whether the guys from KeyLogix have stumbled on this, but they've actually got a profiling capability that sits above that. And they do psychological profiling based on what it knows about you. And when I requested the data, they actually gave me the psychological profile, and that was an eye-opener as well. It accurately guessed my age, my religious upbringing, my education levels, stuff that it just didn't have any data from, that it had kind of correlated back to just things that it understood about me, to be able to actually get a better profile on me. So, but all of that information is available on request if you ask.
Yes, Shilpa, you can get those information because they have to provide the information. And also, there has been an interesting topic which talks about how Google and Facebook and WhatsApp are shaping how we behave in the community as a whole, because they're constantly telling you that this is what others are doing, this is what your peers are doing, this is how the world is appearing, and therefore you shape your behavior and your thinking, and you're purchasing everything to whatever they are telling you to do. That's a kind of profiling, a psychological effect that they're having on people. So that's why a lot of people are moving out of
social media.
Social media.
It's a scary world. Saeed has asked, thank you, Nayaz and Jay, for such an informative presentation. Being a startup, building a software application, what's the first and most important thing we should focus on to protect our user data? Currently, our application and user data are in Amazon Cloud Services. Is there any guidelines there when you're developing software and kind of storing that through someone like Amazon? Making some assumptions in regards to what those security connections are like, but is there any extra due diligence that you should be doing as a developer?
As a developer, I think, yeah. I mean, I would say that if you should build in what is called as security, introduce security by design into your developing. There are companies. Secure Code Warrior is one of the companies, an Australian startup, and what they do is they have this gamification programs which allows you to get into this gamification and see how you can start building security into your program as you develop the program, not at a later stage when you want to do testing or other integration testing or system testing. Right through at every stage, you're secure. If you do follow that and it doesn't cost you much. And if I think for other startups that do it, they provide a free thing. I don't know unless they've changed. That is something I would do. I would try to make sure that my whatever I'm developing is secure. It's secure by design, and then using Amazon Web Services is good. I mean, it's not like as bad as they don't leak out. They're quite secure. A lot of companies use it, and I would suggest that just focus on making your software secure from the beginning, and that will be a great product that comes out from there.
Terrific. If you're curious, Rowetta's just shared a screenshot of the big red alert she got when she logged on to Have I Been Pawned? That's in the chat. So as I said, something for her to have a look at. Google, Ella's asked another question. Google stores my passwords and recommends secure passwords. Should I use something else instead?
Look, every browser stores passwords. You should actually just go into the settings, passwords, and you will see all your passwords being stored there. You can change that and say, do not store my passwords. And always delete all the information once you're logged on. Close the browser. So this is something that you can actually activate on your own on your browser, whether it's Google or whether it's Safari or whatever you're using. Go into settings, go into passwords, look at all the passwords that are listed, just uncheck them. It should not be stored because sometimes Google automatically fills in the passwords for you, which is not a good idea at all. So make sure you can deactivate that part of it.
She just clarified the question. I mean, is there a better password manager? Because she currently relies on Google being her password manager. Is there a better one to use?
Well, there are many password managers, the LastPass, OnePass, and all these kind of password managers. I think OstCyber is using LastPass, if I'm not mistaken. They believe that, yeah, it's very secure. But then you talk to cybersecurity experts and they say, what if LastPass itself is breached? All your passwords are gone. And the hackers are always looking for companies like that because they know they're more secure and they want to breach that because once they breach that, they can get all the passwords. But for the time being, it seems like a temporary relief that they have password managers. And that's exactly the reason why I think eventually we're going to move into a passwordless world with the FIDO, login with FIDO and the alliance that they're working on. Keylogics has actually partnered, one of our strong partners, StrongKey in the United States. They're actually giving a talk in the cybersecurity conference in October with the Computer Society, as well as the one in November. And all this is to do with passwordless authentication. So we believe this is happening. People have been talking about it for a long time, but now things are changing rapidly, and we will see that soon, one by one. People like Google are already part of that alliance, so it will change.
Okay.
The new computers like Windows, like Microsoft's Windows 11 and Windows Hello, they call it. They'll be passwordless, and their passwordless management system would be some of the best that you're going to be using.
Terrific. I'm just watching all these questions come through, so we've got a few here just to touch on. Before we finish up, I'm going to be a time manager and keeper on this to make sure we finish, but we do still have a bit of time. And just a reminder, if there's anything that's niggling around in your head, just throw it down now, and we'll see if we can get to it before we tie it up. But I've got a question here from Intellectual Samurai asking, in my view, taking help of government organisation in event of privacy breach is counterproductive. Last time I informed ATO about having a hack that happened with my system way back in 2017. Rather than nailing the hacker, they put a lifetime access restriction upon myself in accessing my own account. And now every time I need to access my ATO account, I need to give them a phone call, wait for an hour, so they get connected to the customer service, be granted a window 3 business days, getting access open, yada, yada, yada. So you mentioned how important it is to report this stuff, and this is kind of saying this was the result of me reporting it. What are your thoughts there, Joe?
Yeah, I think the correct agency to report this is the our cyber security trust agency, because they're the ones who would handle any of these kind of issues. And the ATO putting an access restriction is because at the moment I think the ATO is not the right agency, but ATO is just kind of being cautious and saying, oh, you said that you've been hacked, so we are now going to monitor how we are getting access into your account. I'm sure that they will have to provide an alternative way of providing an access to them. I think it'll be good to get in touch with the cybersecurity and ask them what is the next steps to do.
So make sure you're reporting it to the right place. Yeah. And again, all of these links will be sent through afterwards to review. I have another question here from Jenny, who's asked, our iPrimus account receives lots of spam emails in recent months, and we keep on blocking the sender, but they just change the address just a little bit, so it still continues to come through. We can see which are spam emails, but it's annoying to have to delete up to 50 emails every day. Is there any other way to deal with this more effectively?
Talk to iPrimus. Tell them that this is happening, because the ISPs, both the large ISPs, telco, TPG. I think iPrimus is part of TPG. I'm not sure. TPG, Optus. What they do, Vodafone. What they do is they prevent a huge amount of spam from hitting their customers, because they're using artificial intelligence and automated bots to search through and stop the spams and all the known spams and coming through. And they do filter out quite a bit of them. And if you do get in touch with your ISP or the service provider and tell them this is what is happening, they know from which IP address that you're connected to, and they'll start monitoring that to see what kind of mails are coming in, and they will put automatic filters and then send you saying that some of these you have to say whether they're spammed, then they'll block them permanently. And this is what the mails which are changing. It's interesting to see that the address a tiny bit is what today the spammers are doing. I mean, nobody sits now not down and sends mails anymore. It is these programs which it's bots which keep changing it, and if they get a hit back, there's a response back, there's no response back, change it a little bit, continue to bombard, hoping one of them will get through.
Jay, just closing out the what you were touching on before, Anne-Marie's added here. I use LastPass for all of my passwords, both personal and business. It's a free version, and this seems to be used quite a lot for sole traders as just a way to be able to sort of manage in a sort of smaller setup. Do you recommend using the free version or using another platform? Do you feel that LastPass is okay for managing business passwords if you're a smaller business?
I think so, yes. I mean, if
Yeah.
it serves the purpose, yes, because even if you're going to use a paid version, you're still going to be entering the passwords, and the number of passwords are going to increase anyway. So if the free version works for you, it's fine. I would just go with that. I'm using a free version right now of LastPass as well. I remember just one password and then launch the website of the one that I want to use. So it's easy. Yes.
Terrific. I have Ella pointed out, sounds like Google might be a safe place for the moment. So he mentioned I'm using LastPass as well. I've got a question here. Intellectual Samurai, blocking the domain rather than just the sender alone in case of spam mail is more effective in my limited knowledge of cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, which is a great tip there, Jai. Yep, Jenny said thank you. Saeed, can I do the same with mobile phone numbers and those? What was the word that you used, Nias? Not phishing. It's when it's SMS.
SMiShing and Vishing.
SMiShing and Vishing. That's a tongue twister right there. Yeah. Is there a way to do the same with messages like that?
Well, apparently there's supposed to be a site where you can actually register your phone number for not getting spam mails and spam calls and stuff like that. But I think it doesn't really work. And sometimes they themselves are the culprits. They do it themselves. We know that it's going to be difficult. I think the telcos are using software to prevent these sort of things happening. As a matter of fact, about a few months ago, I even wrote to Optus about people being able to buy SIM cards off the shelf and using it to scam people. And I said, what's the authentication factor here? I mean, how do you just buy SIM cards, use it for $5 worth of it, make spam calls? You make 10 calls, even if one responds and you make some money out of it, you junk the SIM card, buy another one. What's happening out here? I mean, why countries like, for example, in India, if you need to buy a SIM card, you have tons of documentation that you need to submit, and you don't even get it immediately. They will give it to you much later. Whereas here, you can walk into 7-Eleven and buy a SIM card. I think that's not a good idea at all, but the telcos believe that they need these places to sell their SIM cards. So
funny story to share. It's obviously changed in the US now, but would have been about 10 years ago. I was over there and I asked one of my guys to go out and get me a SIM card, local SIM card. So went down to the T-Mobile, came back, and I needed to top it up and said I had to phone the number. So I asked him, I said, look, have you got the document so I can phone up and give him the details? And he listed me down as Amanda Hug and Kiss as the name for the mobile number. So I actually had to sit there on the other end when I was talking to T-Mobile, asking them to top up my SIM card. And when they asked my name, I had to tell them I was Amanda Hug and Kiss. It was an interesting situation. Obviously, that's all changed now.
Some countries are very strict. India is one of them. I visit India every year, and I cannot get a SIM card when I go there. I have to have somebody local, known to me, related to me, buy the SIM card for me in their name and then give it to me. So it's so easy to buy a SIM card here. Countries like Lebanon are also very strict, strangely.
There's a note here, Jay, can you please share the keyword and service providers containing gamification you use for ensuring cybersecurity during the phase build of website development? So you mentioned that gamification piece before. Are you able to?
Yeah, secure code warriors. I'll share that with you.
Secure code warriors, yeah.
Secure code warriors. Let me see if I can.
If you're able to type that into the chat, if we don't get it through, then I'm happy to send that through as part of the links that we do afterwards. Ella made the point, the do not call register, spammers will ignore anyway, which
ignore it, yes,
is unfortunately a sad truth. I believe I've got to the end of the questions here.
We had some great questions here, Chris.
Yeah, no, that was it was good. I hope that, that I haven't missed any in there. If I have, feel free to put your hand up now and remind me scan back. Otherwise, I think we've addressed all the questions. We've got the link in there now, so Secure Code Warrior. So that was in relation to that gamification piece. Ella's just made the point, so much to think about. Thank you so much for running it. And on that note, Ella, is a good prompt. Niaz, Jay, thank you so much. Really do appreciate your time. I would have been completely lost trying to navigate my way through any of that information. So having somebody like yourself with that depth of expertise, I think what's shining through there, Jay, is your 30 years in IT is definitely there as a shining asset that that is very obvious. And Niaz, coming off the back of your time with Deakin, obviously that's really, you know, kind of brought you up to date with the current framework. So really do appreciate you both taking the time to share with the community. For those of you who are regularly part of our community and get the updates through, fantastic, that will continue. For those who aren't, you will be getting an email tomorrow with some of the links, a link to the recording, some of the stuff that we've spoken about tonight, and then also a link there if you wanted to continue any of these conversations that you can get directly in touch with me. I can have a chat through and see if I can guide you in the right direction if I can't help you directly. We have a fantastic community of people like Jay and Niaz across areas of finance, marketing, product build, product design, software design, user interface, user experience, a whole bunch of areas that we work with. So feel free to reach out to me if you need assistance in any way. Sometimes it's just a listening ear. Sometimes it's just I'm going through a tough time as a business right now. I don't know where to start trying to sort it out. We are more than happy to take those calls and see where we can help. So all of that information will get sent through shortly. Diksha's made the point, we haven't received the email from the last webinar, and there was a couple of links there that I was waiting on to come through. So I will send that all together at the one time. The recording is now live online. I just need to get those links through. But thank you for reminding me, Diksha. Those will come through all at the same time. The next seminar that we'll be running will be next fortnight, so in 2 weeks' time, and we'll be taking a look at I guess the future of digital for businesses. So all of those terms that you hear floated around of artificial intelligence and blockchain and where everything's going business wise, and should I care about it if I've just got a small business with me and 2 employees. That's what this session is about, is just getting our crystal ball out, having a look at what's going on, and maybe where some of those technologies might actually answer some of your needs today, but at the very least make you aware of where all that's going, so you can start to really structure your business around those future trends in digital. So more information will be shared on that one shortly, but that's our next session that we've got some really special guests lined up for. Guys, just before we finish up, I would love to get parting words of wisdom, which we always ask of our guests. Jay, do you have any final thoughts to leave with the guys? Any parting words of wisdom?
I think, I mean, if you're going to be asking Niaz too, since he's mentioned that, I would say that be aware of, you know, scans, be aware, be alert, be aware of, and be secure. Read as much as you can about what's happening in the newspapers and about security and what's happening in the world with respect to cybersecurity. Ultimately, be aware and make the people in your organization aware of cybersecurity and what can be done. There's quite a few courses out there, games out there that can be you can become a part of, or you can participate in, just to increase awareness. Organizations there which do run training courses for small and medium businesses, especially, and passwords. I think the key factor is to strengthen your password and look at how you can use password managers, or even go look at what's available for in the password arena, which with your mobile phones, or using your mobile phones and Android phones for password management. Passwords are the key. If you've got a secure password, I think you're quite secure with all the websites that you're visiting to.
Thank you. Niaz, any final words?
Just continuing on the word password that you mentioned, to all those people who have passwords with less than 11 characters, please increase it to 15 plus, make it more secure. That's my first piece of advice right away. We all need to embrace cybersecurity as part of doing business. Information is key, information is data, information is money today. Protect it like you would protect your home and your belongings in your home. It is vital. There are data brokers that are licensed in the United States, for example. I don't know if they exist in Australia. Their main business is to collect data and sell it, and they can sell it legally. So whatever information you're putting out there on the internet, on your social media, is all being scraped, it's all being sold, and data brokers are making money out of it. So every bit of information that you put on Instagram or Facebook, it's money for somebody. Just think about it, use common sense, browse carefully, think, pause, and act before you click on any link.
Great words of advice. The final thing that I'd say, and really just picking up on what you were saying earlier, Jay, is to have the conversation. So if you've got a team, your most vulnerable point is the person who doesn't know. Before you even look at the hardware and the passwords, etc., have that conversation with the team so that they're aware and they're going to be looking around with the same critical eyes that you should be looking at your system and some of the hints and tips that the guys have left us with tonight. You're only really as vulnerable as your weakest link, and the weakest link may actually be people versus hardware or software. So have a look around at all aspects of your business, have the conversation. There was a great infographic in that presentation that you'd be able to share across. So when you're having one of your morning meetings, just call that infographic up and have a conversation with the team. And if it's just you, if it's a one-man show, review that information and start to just have a look around at your systems and passwords and the way that you're managing things, and see the changes that you can make that will hopefully prevent you from becoming a statistic like the ones which were released today, which were rather scary. The more we go online, the bigger this threat's becoming. So thank you once again for everyone who attended this evening. Really do appreciate your time. You will also be getting in the email a link with feedback, and it is the one part that we really do appreciate if you could just take 2 minutes time to fill out that feedback form. It's that feedback that allows us the ability to be able to run these sessions, get fantastic guests like we've had tonight joining us, and also to make sure that we're running the right topics moving forward. So if you get a moment to share that feedback, that would be fantastic. And I look forward to speaking with all of you at some point in the next few weeks. If you need anything at all, feel free to reach out. There's also our Backing Business in Casey website, which you can go to at any time to be able to access a range of mentors, services, networking groups, a whole bunch of other odds and sods for our business community. So